You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch TV about other watchers.
Ah.
I was
the
like, hey,
best watcher.
He's us.
He's the watcher.
He is the watcher. We are also watchers, but he is the watcher. And slayers. We watched Buffy.
I
can't believe this is like, you guys don't understand how much this is filling in the gaps in my pop culture knowledge that I've been embarrassed about. Like, the fact that I never watched Buffy, it is a generational thing. Like, I was a bit too old when this came out to get super into it, but
kind of just barely, right? How old would you have been?
Barely. When did it come out?
97?
I was 22.
And I mean, you know who this show was popular with? Was young people and then people's moms.
Oh.
I got into this show, I was late to Buffy.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a lot of the last few minutes of episodes of Buffy because of Dawson's Creek. And I think they eventually ended up not being on the same night, if I remember correctly. But I could be wrong about that. Don't at me, listeners. But my memory is, what I am correct about is at least the first season of Dawson's Creek followed Buffy. And so I would, be in front of my TV 5 minutes before Dawson's Creek started. But I came to Buffy late because I had a really good friend who he and his mom both loved Buffy.
He and his mom.
And
That's great.
And it was like a real bonding thing for them. So Buffy means a lot to me, but where Dawson's Creek means a lot to me because I grew up with it, Buffy means a lot to me because of that family, to be honest. But
and you're Andrea, and I'm Jodie.
Yeah. And you're Jodie, and we did watch Buffy, which you said.
Yeah. I think for me it was a generational thing that I didn't watch it. It was also like, I think I have said before, at this age I was moving into the city. I was like in my embarrassing Sex and the City era where I was like, living in New York and too cool for anything high school related. But also I was not into the supernatural, the vampires,
I always
all of
forget that we cover so much of it because of Yellow Jackets.
Well, and I was when I was younger. That's the thing. It's not that I never was. I was a Stephen King obsessive, right? Which isn't necessarily vampires, but it is supernatural and demons and hauntings and weird shit. I was really into Stephen King. I was really into a lot of other novelists that were writing similar things. It just was an age thing. Like, I aged out of that in a way that some people just don't. And I'm not saying I'm cooler because of that. I'm just saying that I got into other things.
Right. You went a different way.
I went a different way. And like, I was super into this kind of thing when I was younger. But yeah, I had fun. I didn't have fun in the way that so out of our last three that were things that meant something to you at some point, right? Dawson's Creek, Veronica Mars, and Buffy. I think I am maybe, obviously I'm most likely to keep watching Dawson's Creek because I'm on season 3. Season 3, episode something.
I said to you yesterday, it's when things really start popping off.
I know. What does that mean at the creek?
Like pop off in Cape Side, yeah.
Yeah. They just visited college for the first time. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I can look up the exact one. I am on season 3, episode 11.
What's the title of that one?
Barefoot at Cape Fest.
Oh, Jodie. Oh, Jodie.
We're going to have to do a recap at the end.
We're going to have to. So I'm assuming all of our listeners have either watched Dawson's Creek as often as I have, or they're watching along with you.
I doubt they're watching along with me, but you never know. Yeah. Oh, there's so many episodes in this season. There's 23. Good God.
We were
this
blessed.
goes on forever.
We were blessed.
How many seasons are there of Dawson's Creek? How much more do I have? 6. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I just got past the whole thing. I don't know if it's over with Eve, the stripper that I was
femme fatale for no reason.
The stripper that I was half convinced Dawson was the only one seeing, even though I know that's not the case. It felt like she was a figment of his imagination.
I can see that. Season 3, we talked about it a little bit when we covered the pilot, but season 3 is when like Kevin Williamson left in quotes, and it's all new writers and stuff in the room, and they just weren't sure what to do with Dawson's Creek.
I think you can see it.
You can, yeah. It gets. Remember when I was like, oh, I remember that show being really kind of just like wholesome and straightforward, but things do get weird and the show does go places. It's season 3.
Yeah, that seems to be what's coming. And also Joey turns weirdly like asexual for a bit here, and it's really annoying.
Which is really saying something,
because she's already annoying.
She's already annoying, and the Creek is such a sex obsessed but sexless in a lot of ways place. But it's like there's this contrast being set up here where like Pacey and Jen are like trying to use each other for sex unsuccessfully, and just funny. And Joey's being super judgmental about anyone possibly wanting to have sex for any reason other than love. She's had to listen to Dawson for how old are they now? 17?
But
for 17 years.
Well, why are we talking about this? But he is like defending them, and she's like, "Would you have sex with someone you didn't love?" And he's like, "No, of course not." I'm like, "Oh my god, you guys!
How about everybody grow up?
be real here, people." Anyway, we're not talking about Dawson's Creek today.
Well, one more little one little note about Dawson's Creek is that Melissa, who is a New Jersey is the World and also Watchers listener, who we're big fans of Melissa's.
Yeah.
But she said that James Van Der Beek had a scholarship to Drew. So remember we were speculating about how he ended up there. Apparently they have a pretty good performing arts program.
Oh.
And NJ Shakespeare operates out of there. So I knew none of that. So thank you, Melissa, for letting us know, because that explains
such a specific school to end up at. So that explains
that. I guess that does, yeah.
Yeah. Good tidbits of information coming in.
And then another Melissa programming note. One of our other listeners, another Melissa, who I don't think is a New Jersey is the World listener.
Okay.
Sent favorite diner is absolutely Eveready Diner in Hyde Park, New York. I don't know anything about diners in Hyde Park, but Jodie, cool. I think you get to New York more often than I do. So that on your list.
Strange because of where you live and where I live, but
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Great order. Favorite thing to order. It's been over a decade since I was there. Probably a chocolate shake or disco fries. You're not
or
from
both.
This. I was just gonna say.
Why would you get both and dip the fries in the shake?
That's a perfect.
Yeah.
Like, for people who aren't from the Northeast, or even from South Jersey doesn't really have disco fries. They've kind of made their way down here, but when I was growing up, we didn't have them. But they're kind of like Northeast poutine. It's like usually mozzarella and brown gravy.
Yeah. I honestly, this is something that I feel like I should be ashamed of, but I'm not a fan of disco fries. I hate gravy.
Even when I ate meat, I wasn't a gravy person. So.
I am a cheese fry person. Absolutely. Yeah. Put cheese on those fries, but leave the gravy. No, thank you.
But if that's your thing, I mean, it's a perfect Jersey diner or any diner order.
100%.
Disco 100%. Fries and a chocolate shake. Yeah, Melissa, you crushed that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Shout out to our 2 VIP listeners.
Our 2 Melissas. Such a child of the 70s or 80s name too. Mm-hmm. So many Melissas, so many Jens.
That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know any like young
Melissas. I know.
Melissas at this point. It's a great name.
My friend Andy's married to a Melissa. It's definitely that sort of like late 70s to early 80s.
I think all of our names. Have you seen a young Andrea?
No.
I think 86 was the last time anybody was named Andrea.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Buffy.
So, what'd you think?
Okay, it felt very dated, obviously, because it is. Like a lot of the camera stuff felt very dated. The like weird fading in and out of all the different photos at the beginning and all the imagery. It was just very like, for some reason, VC Andrews is coming to my mind, which is not like.
No, but I do kind of know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? Like the cover of a VC Andrews novel is what I felt like I was looking at.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah. I mean, but I had fun. I mean, I watched it twice because the first time I was kind of half paying attention and just like wanting to get a sense. Mm-hmm. And then I watched it again and we watched both the first 2 episodes because it was like a to be continued.
Right. Yeah. Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest.
Yeah. There were some things that I thought given what we've been watching, were interesting. Is this the same high school as 90210? Did we talk about this?
Yeah, Torrance High. I don't think we talked about it, but it is, yeah, which is great.
Yeah. I feel like I might have mentioned it, but yeah, that's an iconic high school.
I think She's All That was there. Also, I didn't know about this. I knew about this documentary. Do you know about American High? Or maybe it's called All American High.
I don't think so.
I wonder if we should cover that now with all of this in... Yeah, okay, so just a little bit of a side note, but while we're setting Torrance High School, 90210, so anything else that follows that. But it's also the setting of this documentary called All American High, which is from 1987, and it documents the 1984 senior class at Torrance High School.
Oh.
And then there's a, like, revisited, it is called All American High Revisited in 2014, that revisits those students. And so it might be interesting for us to talk about that. We have too many plans.
We do.
But
we do.
I
actually
really
know someone who grew up in Torrance, and I don't know if they went to Torrance High, but yeah.
But it would be really interesting to look at the real experience of the students in that high school following all of this. Because, like, yeah, She's All That, and a few other things were shot there. But most importantly, Buffy and 90210.
Yeah. Yeah, most importantly for us anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a good time. As I think I expected of myself, the stuff underground with the demons, I was like, whatever. Like, I don't care. This is cheesy. The effects are cheesy. It's the 90s. Like,
the effects don't get...
No, I was just going to say the high school stuff I was like having fun with because we've been in this...
Exactly.
in this world, and I got to kind of think about it in terms of what we've just watched and like compare it. It was interesting to see. So I feel like caveat, Joss Whedon.
Scandal noted,
piece of shit, whatever.
It's so frustrating.
I know. We don't need to go into it.
But yeah.
But the way that she talks versus Veronica Mars versus Angela Chase versus like our other protagonists, I found the dialogue like these shows, Dawson's Creek 2, are putting very adult language into the mouths of teenagers, right? I found this to be the least not convincing, the least convincing maybe. Like in Dawson's Creek, they are speaking like adults and hyper aware of themselves, but it rings weird sometimes. This was like, I think it was the cynicism being so complete. Like we talked about how Veronica Mars, she's like hyper competent and like again talks like an adult, but there's enough of a teenager still in there somewhere. Buffy is like 100% over it all the time.
She's got a past that most of these other
right.
Veronica's past is new to her. Buffy has already burnt down. I have so many. So first thing, I wonder if for the Buffy, what maybe makes it stand out for me is that Dawson's Creek, it's so, like, we keep using the phrase because everybody does, hyperverbal, and that's true for Buffy and for Veronica Mars.
100%.
The people at Dawson's Creek, those kids do not sound like teenagers at all. Buffy, it is weirdly like, and it's the setting too. It's like you took it's like you took 90210 and put a supernatural filter over it.
Yeah.
The dialogue, they still sound like, to me, like early 90s teens.
Yeah.
Because like when she's like, I'm mentally challenged. Like,
there's a couple Heathers references in there too.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. I don't know if they're exact, but there's Cordelia and her friends are Heathers.
Yeah.
They are like, there's one scene where I'm like, they're being Heathers.
It's like, it does feel like more like, in a lot of ways, a late 80s, early 90s cliche than a turn of the century.
Yeah.
Like, cliche.
I think that's why I was referencing Heathers. At some point, I think when Buffy pulls the stake on Cordelia when they're in the bathroom, she says, "What is your childhood trauma?
What is your childhood trauma?
That's what's your damage."
Yeah, it absolutely
It's
is.
Heather's.
I really I think that stuff is funny and I'm charmed by it, but it does feel out of place for a show in 1997, I think. And I wonder if it's the two layers. It's like, not only are these hyperverbal kids, but also they feel weird. Like there's just a lot of.
I hesitate to say this because I know how many like Buffy obsessives there are, and I only watched the first 2 episodes. Things develop, things change. I felt like maybe the weak point here was actually the writing of the dialogue. I feel like it wasn't as sophisticated in its ability to get the tone right for teenagers.
I think it thinks it's
more nailed
than it is
too.
Yeah. I think that's right. I'm really charmed by it. It's probably because I love the show so much.
Yeah.
But it is. I did read a review that said it's like something like, I forget if the line is it thinks it's more clever than it is, or it's trying to be clever but never actually is. And you can
felt that
feel
way.
that.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with Dawson's Creek. I don't think they're trying to be clever. It's not.
Right.
That dialogue is just we're being overly earnest and not thoughtful and careful, but like full of thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I definitely felt like the dialogue let me down a little bit, in that I was hoping it was going to be more clever than it was, because I've heard so much about this show and we just watched similar things.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I didn't appreciate it. I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar is great. I love Allison Hannigan so much. And seeing her so young as this like nerdy Willow character, like one of my notes to myself is I love Allison Hannigan. Like, you know, so I definitely, there was a lot to enjoy. I just felt like
it's also a year before Dawson's Creek and like 10 years before Veronica Mars.
Yeah. I felt like, you know what it was? I think the reason I kept coming back to Heather's was because it was trying to play with the meanness of Heather's without the cleverness of the writing of Heather's. Like the insults in Heather's were like things that stuck that people ended up saying for 10 years. This felt like a retread of that a little bit.
I could see that. I mean, Buffy does become that for sure. There are definitely things that like,
yeah,
but I think this show takes a little while to kind of get off the ground that way. I think there are some episodes of Buffy that are some of the best television writing there is.
Which I totally believe. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have been the phenomenon it was if that wasn't the case. Right. It's just in these first 2 episodes, some of it just rang really flat.
I do think about Cordelia saying, excuse me, I have to go call everyone I've ever met all the time, though.
Yeah.
I think that's so funny.
Yeah, there's some really funny ones. There's like when they're in the locker room, she's like, what kind of name is Buffy? And then someone walks by and is like, hey, Aphrodisia. Like, there's some funny stuff in there. Yeah. It's just the insults or the completely dry sarcasm that just wasn't written cleverly enough for the moment.
I think part of this is maybe Joss leaning a little too much into that, because this is old news for anybody who knows anything about Buffy. The idea of Buffy obviously is that I think he says inverting the horror trope of like the blonde walks into an alley and gets killed. Yeah. And also then the monsters are a metaphor, right? For dealing with high school. And obviously like that's the least insightful thing you can say about Buffy. That just is what it is, at its base level. But he is maybe pushing so hard into that angle to show people like, look, this isn't, and it is, maybe a little too heavy-handed and therefore loses any kind of ability to be kind of clever and subtle. And
I just felt like I was disappointed in the dialogue some of the time.
Fair. I think that's fair.
There's plenty I wasn't disappointed with. You talk about inverting the tropes, like the very first, I think it's the very first scene, maybe it's after some introductory stuff, but like when Darla is going into breaking in with the boy. Yeah. And you think obviously that the guy is going to be the bad guy and like the vampire, and he kind of looks like he would be one of them. And she's this like sweet little blonde girl.
He thinks he has the upper hand. He thinks he's the one who's like,
and he's like convincing her to like break into the school and like make out or whatever. And then of course she's the vampire. And like, you know, I appreciate that flip. I appreciate Buffy's like hyper competence. I always love a hyper competent teenage girl, like obviously. The effects are something though.
Oh boy.
It could be an Olympic gymnast.
It's so funny. It's so
when she's in the alley and Angel and she's just hanging upside down, or not hanging upside down, in like a handstand that she's like hanging out in.
She's so strong.
She's so strong.
Well, she's a Slayer. It's superhuman strength, Jodie.
But it's so funny to see the like sped up like handsprings and flips and stuff that she does. It's really cheesy.
Again, I think so much of what I love and what people love about Buffy is that stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I could see that.
It's so fun.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, I was laughing at those moments, being like, oh my God, here we go. She's going to like do a flip in the air and kick him and it's going to send him flying. Like, yeah. No, that stuff was amusing to me for sure.
Yeah. I think we don't need to do a scene-by-scene recap of this. I think the plot, even across the two episodes, is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk more about the characters.
Yeah.
But do we want to do just a quick Buffy's new in town?
Yeah, why don't you, since you know it better than I do, if you want to do a quick...
Sure.
I did watch it twice, but my brain is also mush.
So Buffy's new in town. She's kicked out of her old school for setting fire to the gym because it was full of
vampires.
Asbestos.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I said asbestos like it's asbestos.
Yeah.
How do we say that word?
Asbestos. Yeah.
I said asbestos like it was a demon's name.
Yeah, it does sound like a medieval devil of some kind. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Which is a reference to the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer, also written by Joss Whedon. We'll get into all of this, but I know we're supposed to be doing the plot now, but just very quickly, Joss wrote the movie way more in line with what this show is, and then it got turned into a much sillier 90s comedy kind of.
Right.
If you've ever watched the movie,
which I have not.
I loved that movie. I saw it in the theater. But it's very silly. Yeah. It's silly in a different way. It feels like a 90s, So there are some references throughout the pilot to that movie, but you don't need to have seen it, obviously. So Buffy's new in town, burned down the gymnasium. She comes to this new school, and this
her
school
mom is
also
so sweet.
Oh God, Joyce
her mom
is the best.
Such a she looks like Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, she totally does.
I just was like, for a second, I was like, I know Sigourney Weaver's not in the show.
I can absolutely see that. She really does.
Yeah, she's trying.
She's really trying, and she's really hopeful for Buffy.
Yeah. Got in with the wrong crowd last time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so she's at a new school. We quickly learn, even before we meet Buffy, that there are vampires here too. We're introduced to Giles pretty quickly, who is Buffy's watcher. Every Slayer gets a watcher. He also knows he's a new librarian to the school.
I love that he's a librarian. I didn't know anything about this show, and I love that there's a library from the very first minute. We love a library and a librarian.
A spooky library, and just
it is a spooky library.
Yeah, and just the most British man overseeing things.
Yeah. Well, he used to work at a British museum or the British Museum. One of them.
See, that's fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. And then we learn that there is a plot from a vampire called the Master. He is stuck in like a time space bubble.
Well, there was an earthquake, Andrea.
Yeah, and it locked him there.
Yeah.
And he has a plan, just like his minions, to get a bunch of fresh souls for him to feed on that will free him.
Yeah, and there's something about the night of the harvest.
Right. But I mean, that's basically it. They're vampires. Buffy has to fight them. One of their friends in this core group that you meet early on, Eric Balfour, who we have seen in
6 Feet Under.
6 Feet Under, and I think he was in something else that we've covered, but I also know him from Can't Hardly Wait, and he was one of those actors for a minute who it seemed like was maybe going to pop off. And that's pretty, I think, surprising, is that one of the who seems like he might be a main character maybe early on gets turned and dies.
Yeah. And I think the thing that is fun about this first episode, and also a little weird, is how we're kind of, like you said, combining horror with the typical high school genre where she starts a new school, she meets new people, she's trying to figure out or you think she's trying to figure out which group of people to fall in with. She meets the nerd, but she also meets the popular girl. She meets this little group of people that she kind of falls in with, like Willow and Xander and Jesse. And we've got this little group immediately of 4 people, which is it's Dawson's Creek. It's everything. Yep. It's all of these shows we've watched. But then it's compounded by the fact that this group of people that she meets immediately has to go fight vampires with her. And their reactions are odd. I will say. Willow is losing her mind, which is the more relatable reaction, in my opinion. She's not functioning.
No.
But Xander's a little too chill about all of this.
Well, he's too chill, and then he's such a baby when he's like, I get it. When she's like, you guys aren't going with me.
I'm not brave enough to,
I'm less than a man, I think he says. She literally has superhuman strength. Like, you don't. I'm so sorry.
You saw it. But he's very pretty accepting, I would say, of this weird situation that they're in. Willow is speechless, but then we find out she's also a hacker.
Oh my God.
She's so smart. She can break into the town planning.
And I do think city plans are widely available, though.
I think so too.
I think that's what we've learned from Bonadouche, that you can kind of get in and get...
Yeah, but I don't know about utilities, maybe not because of terrorism risks. Okay. But maybe not in the 90s.
I was going to say pre-9/11.
Yeah.
I kind of think the way everybody reacts to everybody is watching that scene where she's like, I may have accidentally unencrypted their security systems.
Yeah.
And then Buffy's like, this is useless. And it's like,
yeah.
Oh, did you hear what she just said?
No, I know. And it's so funny how they're mixing high school TV show tropes where there's this scene which reminded me of Freaks and Geeks, where Buffy bangs into someone in the hallway and everything in her purse goes all over the floor, and then Xander comes to pick it up and they have a meet cute and
she leaves her steak behind, though.
Yeah, of course. Right. Yes. Okay, there was a really funny line about where is it? When he's giving it back to her, something about building a very small fence.
Very tiny fence. Yeah.
Very tiny fence. That was a good one. Oh, they go to the one club in town. This is another thing. There's a club.
The Bronze.
The Bronze.
How dare you? The Bronze.
I'm so sorry.
And it is so important to me.
This is a thing we talked about, though. How important clubs were in the 90s. Yeah. This was the thing you did. You went to the club.
Exactly. Cordelia even says when Harmony, I don't know if we get her name in this episode, but that's Harmony. When Harmony asks her, are we going to the Bronze? And Cordelia says something about that being the only place in town.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, 90210, we have it.
It's been in others too. My So-Called Life. They go to the club that they're not really able to get into, but they get fake IDs.
Right. The Bronze is really important. The Bronze is very cool because, as you saw the band playing as an actual band.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. About the I didn't look. I did very little research for this one because I figured you had it covered. But
that band Sprung Monkey is a real band. The Bronze will bring in actual. It's one of the cool things about Buffy is from time to time, an actual musician who you will be familiar with will play the Bronze.
Yeah, I love when they do that, and especially that was a 90s show thing that happened a lot. We have the teacher trope, the teacher droning on when no one's listening. Talking about the Black Death, which I thought was funny. And then the bell rings, nobody's answering her, and they all leave. Also, we get the meeting of the new kid and the popular girl, where we talked about in 90210, where when Brenda meets Kelly, they you expect there to be a mean girl thing happening, but there isn't. In Freaks and Geeks, there was. In this, there is and isn't. She's immediately very friendly to Buffy, but extremely rude to everyone else.
Yeah, you kind of think that it is going to be the 90210 thing, where it's oh, she seems really nice. She's being nice to Buffy. They're getting along. And then she's so nasty to Willow.
Yeah. Well, and also, in this case, Buffy doesn't seem to want to curry her favor at all. She's this person seems terrible.
She immediately goes to Willow and she says that she needs to pass math or whatever, which is probably true, but I think it's also just Buffy being nice and looking for a way to connect with this other person.
Yeah. 100%. Why is John Tesh the devil? Is that a thing that I don't know about?
I think it's just because his music's bad. I don't think there's... Yeah, I think that's the joke. But I don't know why these kids even...
Why do they know who John Tesh is?
It's because it's an old man. Joss wasn't old yet, but like because it's a dude who doesn't actually know what teens are interested in. Also, that James Spader is
that's an 80s reference.
We're like girls in the early 90s. I don't think I knew who James.
I think we were done. I knew who he was in the 80s.
Like we're teens in 97 really going nuts for him. What would he
I
have
don't
been?
think so.
There's just no way that like she cares about Pretty in Pink, because like what else? There's nothing else he was in that like would have made any sense for a teen to have known in 97. Like he was in plenty of stuff, but like I don't think Buffy was watching Cocaine, One Man's Seduction.
Pretty in Pink is more likely, I would think.
But it was 11 years previous. Like it makes no sense.
Yeah. No, the references are weird.
Yeah, it does feel to me that Joss, like, it almost feels like Buffy should have been set in whenever Heather's, like...
The late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, like 89 or 90.
Yeah, then it would have... Those references might have made sense.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of those, like, high school tropes that feel... I think that's what I meant about the dialogue. They feel, like, slightly... Like... When Cordelia says, "Oh, being close to that many shoes," I'm like, "That's come on."
Yeah, he does miss the mark in those ways. I think a lot of what makes these first two episodes so good is what these actors do with the dialogue and with what they're given. Because like,
try to, yeah.
Because I think Willow is so sweet and likable, and like. Even though a lot of the stuff she's saying where she's like, you don't have to talk to me, you don't have to come back, like delivered a different way, she would just be pathetic. But she's fine. Like, she's fine being the nerd. She seems pretty like... She
defends Buffy. She's like, she wasn't talking to us. Yeah. She wasn't being friends with us. You can still like her.
Yeah, it's in such a supportive, friendly, kind of like chipper way. You don't feel sorry for Willow at all.
Yeah. No, because she's clearly really smart and she has friends. They're just not the cool kids.
Right.
She and Xander broke up because he stole her Barbie when they were 5. Like, that's very cute.
It's very cute. I love them. There's just so much to love, so much about this series, especially as you get into later seasons, that like I can't explain to you how good this show can be. And it's like, but you do have to get through season 1 at least for it to really, and even then, like. And
I can picture the potential. I mean, the characters are fun. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar is incredibly charming, which I already knew, but like you know, even from the first episode, she is charming. Like she's given some clunky dialogue to say, but you know, she does a good job with it.
I've said more than once on this podcast that. This is one of those shows where the lead is the least interesting character for me, but that doesn't happen yet. And I think she's great. Like I think she's. I love Buffy, but I just love Willow and Xander so much. But you don't. I think they're all kind of on an even playing field at this point, where like Xander's doing his best. Nicholas Brennan is doing his best, but I think that like. It's not a fault of Sarah Michelle Gellar's that I love everybody else so much. It's just
his reaction in the library is pretty good when he comes out of the stacks after she's talked to Giles and he's just like, "What?"
Yeah, he's a pretty good. I mean, I know all of these people are 40, but like he's a pretty good teen boy. When Cordelia and Harmony are in that computer programming class, and they just look like two 40-year-old women at work.
Yes. I know. At least Allison Hannigan kind of looks like a teenager.
Yeah. I think she's closer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she was still in her early 20s, but I think some of them were. I really think Nick, like, hold on. I have to look it up. Oh, my God.
You all right?
How old was Giles in the pilot, if you had to guess?
Oh, no. Is he, like, a lot younger than us?
No.
Okay.
Not a lot younger than us.
Like, yeah, a lot younger than me?
Not a lot, but...
Is he supposed to be, like, 37 or something?
No.
Okay.
Like 43.
Close enough.
43.
Yeah, God.
I am in love with him, but in my head, that man is 60 years old.
Yeah.
Eternally.
Well, he's British.
Right, that's true. 43.
Wow.
It's upsetting.
It's not as bad as the Tony Soprano, though.
No, that one was really stressful. Yeah. Charisma Carpenter was 27.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she did audition for Buffy, but apparently she was late to the audition. David Boreanaz was 28, but he's
playing older though. Well, maybe not, but he seems older regardless as that character.
Nicholas Brennan was 26.
Wow, they really were like
Alison
older.
Hannigan was 23. I mean, a lot of this is like we said. Sarah Michelle Gellar was only 19, so she was actually the closest.
Yeah.
In age by quite a bit, but that haircut does make her look also 27.
Oh yeah.
So.
The thing about Giles that struck me in the first 2 episodes is just how much exposition he's given. He's like, I have to explain everything to everyone right now, even to the people in this show that obviously already know this, because nobody knows what's going on. So let's talk about demons and let's talk about the Hellmouth, and I'm going to explain everything because I am the explainer.
Yep, and that's what I do here. When he is so excited when Buffy shows up, and he just throws that dusty book that has the weird spelling of vampire at her. He's so excited. I do love their dynamic kind of immediately when he is doing all that exposition, but Buffy's kind of like jumping in to help, and they have that back and forth a little bit. And
then he tries to do it again, and she's like, he loves this part. Yeah. She's, because I remember, so one thing that made me giggle in their interaction was when they're at the club and you see him, and in my mind I see him up there and I'm like, ew, he's at the club, and she goes up there and she's basically like, ew, why are you at the club? Like, yeah, okay.
No, but that's another fun of like the teenness of it all, where he's going on and on about how like you have to be blah blah blah, and she's like, that guy, because his outfit's dated, like what's he even doing here?
Right. Yeah.
And then he's just kind of like very British about it all.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess we didn't even really explain what happens for people that haven't seen it, but like we said, the vampires are there, they're coming, there's this like harvest thing so that the big guy the master, whatever the fuck, can come back out of the underground. And so in order to feed the master, his minions come and take Jesse and Willow. Willow doesn't get bitten, Jesse does. And then like Buffy saves the day, saves them, except Jesse turns. And then there's the harvest night. They try to rise, and Buffy like saves everyone somehow.
Well,
what am I missing?
Well, it's the group is what happens, because she says no, like I have to do this myself, but of course,
right. And
eventually and so everybody's there to kind of like help usher people out, because I think it's actually Xander who realizes it's going to happen at the Bronze. And so everybody's there like ushering people out. The thing that I like is what it seems like Luke is the master's little minion is going to succeed. And then Buffy says something about like sunlight and breaks a window. Yeah. And he like cowers and it gives her the advantage to stake him. Yeah. Because it's still the middle of the night and it's just like a stage light. Yeah. But it's just Buffy being, clever, and it's not just that she's super strong.
Yeah. But the other ones do, you're right, kind of come into being able to help. Like Willow throws holy water on somebody. Xander accidentally kills Jesse kind of because someone bumps into Jesse, right? And like it pushes the stake through him.
The stake, yeah. Yeah. Xander's like kind of
threatening him.
Yeah, but is being a weenie about it. Understandably so. I would be a weenie about it too. That's one of his best friends. It's tough.
Yeah. But yeah, so they end up sort of saving the day for the moment, and then the sort of wrap up is Giles being like, oh, but there'll be more. And you're like, oh, there's the series. There's gonna be more.
He says Earth is doomed. Because they go right back to being kind of like chit-chatty teens. It's really sweet. But yeah, that's the whole thing of Buffy that is kind of smart, is the way you can have a monster of the week on a show like this is you put them on a Hellmouth. So it is just that.
Right.
Because you can't have like the X-Files, they're seeking out these cases and they can drive around and the FBI will pay for them to fly where they need to go. You can't have that with a team.
In high school, yeah. They have to be kind of put on top of all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I watched 2 episodes, and I feel like one of the things about 90s TV is we've become so trained in 2024 to watch things that are hyper fast that, like, in my head, I was like, these 2 episodes could have easily been 1 half-hour episode.
Oh, and would have been
now. Yeah.
Like that plot is pretty thin when you look at it that way.
Yeah. And we meet Angel, which we briefly mentioned, who is mysterious at this point. We don't know who he is or like whose side he's on. He does say, like, I didn't say I was your friend.
I don't know what that he says a friend.
Yeah.
Then he says I didn't say I was your friend. But he
is rooting for her pretty obviously. The description of Angel in the script is really funny too. It says Angel is strikingly handsome with intelligence and a kind of distance in his eyes.
Ooh.
Moves with a fighter's grace. It's like, okay.
That feels right. That is David Boreanaz's famously discovered while like out walking his dog. People tell that story as if he had no intentions to be an actor, but he was walking his dog in LA where he was living trying to be an actor.
Okay.
And it just so happens that like
worked.
his neighbor knew Joss Whedon or something like that and was like, oh, you need a like tall, dark and handsome guy? My neighbor is out walking his dog a lot and he looks like he could fit the role.
Yeah.
His dad is a famous Philadelphia weatherman. Dave Roberts, who was a Philly weatherman forever. So Angel, Dave Roberts' dad it's hard to, not a ton of Jersey connections.
Yeah, I didn't find any, but I also didn't look super hard.
But that's my Philly connection.
Okay.
One of the writers who doesn't show up until like season 5, but he wrote some big important episodes, is a writer and director, is from Millville. So we've got that. But I don't know if that counts if it's not until season 5.
No, if it's all we've got, it counts.
I do. Maybe I'm missing a big one, but I just don't think.
Yeah.
So what do we think? Set and setting? Does it feel?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact actually that it's a high school that I've seen before because it kind of feeds into the idea that this is a show about the tropes of high school from a different angle. So that recognizable Torrance High School actually, I think, works in this case instead of making it feel weird. Like it makes sense to me.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, what's the hook?
The hook is Teenage Vampire Slayer. Like, that's in high school.
It says what it does on the tin.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it worked for me. I feel like if I had been in the right time in my life, that would have been all I needed.
Hook, setting world building. I think we kind of covered that.
The world building. So I feel like there's 2 worlds that they're trying to build. One is the high school world, which I'm completely convinced by. The other one is the like quote unquote underworld. I don't know if it's the special effects of the time period. It looks like they're in someone's basement. Like I don't know if it gets better. It wasn't the most convincing, scary underworld I've ever seen. It felt very small and cramped. And like just kind of, and maybe that was the point, like he got trapped there, but like it definitely felt a little bit less real to me than the high school part.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that becomes part of the show as a way to contend with things like budget and limitations, where it's like, yeah, it makes sense that he's in this tiny little space that feels kind of cramped because they made it make sense by saying he's trapped in a time-space bubble, which doesn't really make sense.
Right.
The fact that like clothes disintegrate with the bodies so that we don't have to deal with cleaning up dead bodies everywhere.
Right.
The fact that like which I like, but that the vampires get those bumpies, that their faces get real ugly when they like quote unquote vamp out.
Yeah.
Is smart because then we don't have to watch Buffy kill people who look like other high school students. Right. That would be off-putting.
Yeah.
And then that becomes part of the show. There's also what they call Sunnydale syndrome. I don't know if Giles actually uses that phrase, but it's the saying like, well, if you move to the Hellmouth to Sunnydale, or like you grew up in Sunnydale, you kind of don't notice the supernatural stuff. You sort of like rationalize. He says, people have a tendency to rationalize what they can and forget what they can't.
Right.
And you see that with when Cordelia's like gangs on PCP or whatever.
Yeah.
When it's like,
right. No, yeah, that's at the end of the second half of this.
right. And so all of that, I think, is like practically necessary and then becomes part of the world building. And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
What questions are raised?
Questions it raises for me is, okay, I am interested in a few things. One, how the relationship between the friends develops, because like you said, the friends that they introduce are pretty charming, at least some of them. But like, you know, Willow and Xander seem like people that I would be interested in following, especially knowing your love of them. But even without that, I feel like that's something that I'm curious about. I am curious about how a show that has so many seasons maintains interest and novelty when it feels like it's going to be a monster of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Like how, because at its core, that isn't super interesting to me, but I feel like if I gave the show a real go, I would enjoy it. And so I'm like thinking, how do they make that work, I guess? Right. I know that I believe they will, or that they do.
I will say Buffy works a little bit like kind of like the X-Files and to an extent Veronica Mars, where like most episodes are a monster of the week, but there's usually some longer running not mystery, but like a big bad that they're trying to figure out that will last a couple of episodes or a full season.
Well, and I feel like the relationships between the people, that common thread is probably what would keep me interested.
Also so many characters who are my favorite characters who you
haven't met yet.
And some of them you won't for several seasons. Like there are characters who I love in all of TV. They make my top 10 easy that you haven't seen.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same thing was true with Dawson's Creek when I was watching the first episode. And you're like, you haven't even met Jack and Andy yet. I'm like, okay. Now I have. Yeah, no, I think that those are the main questions. Like, how are the relationships going to develop? How are they going to keep the Monster of the Week thing interesting? Because they set themselves up by, like, finishing this big threat so quickly, you know? So they've got to keep doing that. That's kind of it. I mean, like, I liked the people in it, so I feel like that would be enough for me to keep going. But yeah, it's so funny, like, because they wrapped up the main reason for being, or the reason for the conflict, in 2 episodes. It's like, okay, well, now they've set it up that they have to do a new one every single, you know, or repeatedly.
Yeah, I guess the only like outstanding mystery or question at this point, because we know why monsters are drawn there, we know what Buffy's purpose is, we know where Giles came from, like we know all of that. The only thing is like, what's Angel's deal? Like, whose friend is he if he's not true. Buffy's? But even that is pretty like,
yeah, I mean, I guess how he comes into it, as someone who knows that this went on for a really long time and that there was a spinoff, like, obviously he's extremely important and we just don't know why, but in the first 2 episodes.
God, I really wish there were a way for you to just download most of it to your brain, because it's just...
I mean, I could read the Wikipedia.
No, don't. It's different.
What do you mean?
Than having downloaded it to your brain in like...
Oh, like having
had the
seen
emotional...
all of it. Yeah. I gotcha.
Because it is a lot to watch. Oh man, they're so... I'm just looking through... Buffy is really known for its opening credits.
Oh,
so that Nerf Herder theme song is fully iconic. But also they switch up every season, and that they will do things like slipping in characters who weren't in the opening credits to sort of like play with our expectations of who our main, like, or not expectations, play with our like framing of like who we should be thinking of as main characters and when. And they're really thoughtful about those credits, which like I said, do change season to season.
The credits were one of the things where I was like, wow, these graphics, like all the flashing imagery. I found a review of the pilot from 1997.
What's
It's from the Hollywood Reporter. It says, it's creepy and it's kooky, mysterious, and, oh wait, that's the Addams Family. Let's revamp. What we're talking about here is a spooky venture called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar in the title role. A 2-hour telefilm launches the new series based on the feature release of the same title, picking up in storyline where the original movie left off. Gellar is a magically powered undoer of the undead who protects humanity, cuts school, hangs out in cemeteries, and lies to her mother. In tone, it's sort of Clueless meets Dracula, with emphasis on the hip angst of high schoolers, coupled with vampire danger and apocalyptic prophecies.
So they liked it.
Yeah. It says, Gellar proves to be sympathetic as the super heroine who just wants to lead a normal life, hang out with her friends, and not have to create more mayhem, for gosh sake.
That is kind of...
Yeah.
We can talk alternate casting.
Oh, yeah. I don't know much about that.
Buffy's got a sort of long list. We talked about Katie Holmes as a possible Buffy, and kind of almost the only reason that she wasn't was because of her age. They needed kids who could, they needed actors who could film late nights because so much, as you saw, takes place at night.
Yeah.
And also Selma Blair.
Right.
It's funny if you think Selma Blair, Joey Potter. I just said her real name, Katie Holmes, Charisma Carpenter. You can kind of get the idea of who they were picturing more for Buffy, what kind of character.
Right.
And then they ended up going with Sarah Michelle Gellar, who I think auditioned for Cordelia in the first place. It's funny, a lot of these names are people who you'll see later. So Mercedes McNabb, she's Harmony. She's Cordelia's friend who's in the computer programming class with her. Natasha Lyonne.
What?
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
I love Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah, she's great. That would have been I wonder if Buffy as the cynic, as being really dry, if I kind of like the contrast of her being this Buffy, but I wonder how that would have played with somebody like Natasha Lyonne, who kind of is that way.
Yeah.
Naturally.
The contrast, I think, helps it.
Yeah. Julie Benz, she's Darla. You saw her at the beginning. She was considered, and then literally everybody, because then also Elizabeth Ann Allen, who I know as a character named Amy from Buffy, who's a pretty small role. But all of these people all went on to play in Buffy to different degrees, who all came out first. So that's cool to know when they were casting, they were keeping these people, I guess, except for Natasha Lyonne, in mind. And then Ryan Reynolds was considered for Xander.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have liked that. But maybe he was a lot dorkier back then, though. Like, he wasn't the Ryan Reynolds we know. He was kind of a goofy
and a little doughier.
Guy.
And,
yeah.
Nathan Fillion as Angel, which, like, maybe. And then I can't say any of these other names really with kind of without spoiling them. So yeah, I think that's interesting. I think the fact that so many of those actors who went out for Buffy went on to have pretty robust careers of their own, I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I found a sort of review of the good and bad of the Buffy pilot from Screen Rant, and one of the things that they didn't love, which I think you already mentioned, is the fact that Jesse dies, because according to this, which I think I agree with, Jesse's a fun character, and it would have been interesting to see the friend group's dynamic with 4 people instead of the 3 we ended up with. It would also have been nice to have another boy in the mix, maybe someone Xander could relate to more, but that never happens because Jesse is killed by Darla in the end of the pilot episode.
It's interesting.
I mean, I love that actor whose name I've already lost in my brain.
Eric Balfour.
Thank you, Eric Balfour. I love that actor from his work on 6 Feet Under, so I agree with that.
I'm wondering because I'm like, they feel pretty similar, but I think that might be because they knew they were going to kill him off, so they didn't really need to differentiate him too much. And I wonder what they would have done with that character if he had stuck around.
Yeah.
But you got to have a golden trio, so. And we've got, I mean, Buffy is Harry, Xander is Ron, obviously, and Willow is Hermione. Like, you can't have 4.
Okay. So
Joey is Hermione, Pacey is Ron, Dawson is Harry. I could do this all day.
Yeah, I believe you.
And then Jen comes in and messes everything up.
Yeah.
For them.
So I'm seeing that there was an unaired pilot from 1996. Is this
I think it's only
about?
like it's like 25 minutes long.
Okay.
Willow's played by a different. It was just to kind of like shop it around. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Like I don't even think it made it onto like DVD extras or anything. I'm trying not to talk about Joss as little as possible, but I believe he is quoted as saying it sucks ass.
Okay. Yeah, it is posted in full on Reddit, so if you feel like watching it, it's there.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yeah. It's in black and white to start.
Yeah, it looks like a few scenes are, and I don't know if that's a style choice or just like a.
Ooh, the font is terrible.
Yeah.
That was a good call, changing that font.
I haven't seen that pilot, but the magic of editing for our listeners, so they don't have to hear us kind of like talking through watching it, is I'm going to share it in the episode notes. Go like watch a little bit of this. You'll see Principal Flutie is played by Stephen Tobolowsky in the unaired pilot.
Am I supposed to know who that is?
Yeah, you know who Stephen Tobolowsky is.
Okay, I haven't seen him on screen yet. Oh, yeah. Okay.
As
Yes.
soon as,
Yep, I know who he is.
Stephen Tobolowsky, who was in a Brazilian things.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Groundhog Day.
Uh-huh.
He's watched that first step. It's a doozy.
Yep.
He's another one of those. I feel like every week we end up with one of those actors who is just like in 10 things a year because he shows up and is like, it feels to me like it's probably a good sign that he is a good person because he is.
He was in Spaceballs.
Yeah, Spaceballs, Seinfeld, Thelma and Louise.
Groundhog Day.
I mean, he's great.
Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars.
Obviously.
Oh, I
forgot about My Father the Hero. Murder in the First, which is a movie that I weirdly loved. He's in like one or two episodes of every show.
Yeah.
Drew Carey show, Life with Louie. Suddenly Susan.
Malcolm in the Middle.
Mad
Law
About
and Order.
You. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's just
CSI Miami.
Two Guys
West
Girl
Wing.
Pizza Place.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. Deadwood. Desperate Housewives. Entourage. Boston Legal.
Yeah, Memento. Obviously, that's like one where he's got a pretty.
Mindy Project.
Roswell. Did you say
Good
Roswell?
God. I don't think so. I mean, he's in everything.
He's in everything. He's one of those guys, and he's got that face where you're like, oh,
yeah,
it's
that
Stephen
guy.
Tobolowsky.
Yep. Different Willow.
Wow, what a fun little discovery. I can't believe I've never seen this before when it is so available. I feel silly, and so yeah, go watch a few minutes of this at least to see Stephen Tobolowsky play Principal Flutie because that is.
And the horrible font they almost used or they originally had in here.
Thank God.
As a font nerd. Awful. Yeah.
Also, as not a font nerd, really. Also awful. So it's just bad whether you're picky or not. Is that everything?
I feel like it is. I mean, this is what I meant when I said like I don't know, and this is not a negative thing, but like I don't know how much there is to talk about in the first two episodes. That is the thing. It's I love doing pilots because it's been a really fun way to compare these shows. But some pilots give you more than others, and this sets up a lot. I think it's a good pilot in that it introduces all the characters really well. It gives you a sense of place. It sets up the conceit of the show really well. But it also, for it being two episodes, is pretty like this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens, you know?
Something that has become really clear, and we've talked about this along the way, but is the difference between a show that is going to get 23 episodes a season versus a show that is going to get 8 or 10 and is going to drop all at once.
Yeah. Totally.
They really can sort of take their time. And also, even if we got a show that got 23 episodes now, we wouldn't stand for it if it moved at this pace. So.
There's also more competition now by far. And so you were able to kind of have a little bit of a slow roll in the beginning, knowing, like you said, that there'd be a lot more, but also that people had less to watch, and that if you got any word of mouth, you were pretty likely to get a good audience.
Right.
You know, nowadays it's like you really have to make a splash with that first episode, for season drop, whatever it is, to really stick around.
Yeah. You know what I just realized?
What did you just realize?
I think this is our last pilot. I I think we did it.
People don't know that this is our last pilot.
Oh.
Now they do.
Now, should I not spoil that?
No. We can spoil it because we should talk about what's coming up.
Yeah. I think, with that in mind.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's anything you're walking away from this this months-long experiment that we have done?
Yeah. I feel like I could now write a paper on representations of high schoolers and how they changed between the late 80s and the late 90s into the early 2000s. The way that language is used by teenagers in said shows, the settings of those shows and how they are similar and different. I mean, really for me, it was the comparison that was the most interesting. The comparison of two slightly different time frames, but also the comparison of things in similar time frames and how, I mean, I'm an academic. I look at this from like, could we write a thesis about this, you know? And I definitely think we could write many theses about this because we compared a lot of like things in different sections, right? We had the pilots that were like apocalypse heavy. We had the high school ones. We had like, you know, I lost what the other ones were. We did Apocalypse, and then we did what?
We did, like, our
Random.
favorites. We basically did, like, we think these are the best. Then we did Apocalypse and Teen. I think that's kind of how they were.
Yeah, with a break for the bear. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely made me think about how well a pilot does what a pilot is supposed to do and how that's changed over time. But I think even more so, it's just within those sections comparing things. So like the Apocalypse section was actually super interesting. It's, you know, it's not a genre that I think about myself as watching, but it turns out I do watch it a lot and have thoughts about it. But especially the high school stuff and the sort of generational differences was super interesting.
Yeah. I think form and function is a big thing here of like, I kind of thought, and we sort of did apply a pretty bare bones rubric to just about every pilot, but looking at the difference of what a pilot like Lost has to do versus those Apocalypse pilots versus these teen pilots, even when they are genre shows like Veronica Mars and like Buffy, it's just like their missions all have to be very different. And I never really thought about that. I kind of have always thought like, we give the pilots a break because all they're there to do is kind of like teach us what their world is and who these people are. And but it is a lot more than that. Yeah.
And it, you know, depending on genre, depending on, you know, year it came out, what service it was on, you know, whether it was live TV or streaming, all of that stuff makes a difference. You know, streaming has really introduced a whole other aspect to this because some of these pilots were dropped at the same time as 9 other episodes. You know, and you could just watch one and then go right into the next one. That makes a huge difference than waiting a week. So, yeah, I thought it was interesting. I hope our listeners did. I enjoyed it. I thought it was also a fun way to talk about some of the shows that we loved when we were younger that we wouldn't spend, you know, the time to do all however many episodes of Dawson's Creek, like, you know,
would love to.
We will probably throw in a recap episode once I'm done, but
can't wait.
Yeah. So should we talk about where we're going from here? Because it's like related but different.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the next few weeks.
Yeah, we had like
I mean, we've got plans.
Yeah, we had like an impromptu production meeting.
We've got plans.
Yeah, we have some plans. So next week, as we mentioned last time, Andrea and I went to Vulgarthon, the Kevin Smith movie marathon in Jersey. A week or two ago, we recorded an episode about it. And we're going to insert that as sort of our sort of shift moment, our break, but also just as a fun, you all know we're obsessed with Jersey. So like really getting in there for a minute about the Jersey of it all and the time that we spent in that slightly uncomfortable or very uncomfortable movie theater. Not as uncomfortable as the back of a Volkswagen, but slightly uncomfortable. But after that, we're doing something else, which maybe, Andrea, you can tell us about or start to.
I'm so excited. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a movie that we have mentioned, and I can't remember. You still haven't watched it, right?
Nope.
No.
I've been waiting.
And
I'm actually now I'm going to wait until we get to that point.
That I watched and loved immediately, and I haven't stopped thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I Saw the TV Glow. It is a queer supernatural coming of age movie set in New Jersey.
I mean, come on.
At least filmed in New Jersey. I think you could say set we'll talk about, but it's
Right.
New Jersey. It 100% is New Jersey.
Where was it filmed?
Yeah, it was shot at Verona High School, Cedar Grove High School, Keensburg Amusement Park, the Saint, Camp Lewis. I mean, just all over, but very much in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
The writer and director is Jane Schoenbrunn, who also did We're All Going to the World's Fair. So they've got like a weird little horror mind. Like their movies are supernatural, but in a way that like you've kind of never seen before, I think. It's a beautiful, weird little movie, and I can't wait to talk about it. But something that's very important, I think, that will help you love this movie is if you go into it as the exact kind of person I am, is what I will say. Is like it is, I think it, my guess is it works on its own, probably. I don't know, but it just is so, it is a love letter in a lot of ways to a certain genre. First and foremost, most obviously for many reasons, Buffy. So now everybody has seen the pilot at least of Buffy. You've got that context. But then also shows like, for example, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, Pete and Pete. So we've got a little project on our hands. Yeah. We're going to do some studying. Yeah. We are going to watch.
A good academic always reads the sources.
Exactly.
In addition to the piece that they're looking at.
Yeah, so we're going to read our primary sources. Yeah. Which are, in this case,
Are You Afraid of the Dark? Goosebumps, and Pete and Pete.
And then we're going to watch I Saw the TV Glow. I Saw the TV Glow you have to pay for. It is available on streaming. I just think if you've been listening to our show and you like our show, this movie is for you. I can't explain to you, Jodie, how much this weird little movie feels like it like
it's made for you.
But like in a way where I'm like, I think you guys are gonna love it. You just have to be ready to go with the flow. That's what I'll say. Yeah. It is very Jersey. It is very queer. It is very cool. It is very loving. It is tough, I will say. We'll get to that. Yeah. Right now, I just want us to have a lovely time watching some shows which I think none of these are shows that you watched as a young person, right?
Wrong generation again. Yeah, these are a little bit later than me. So, and for this, we're not necessarily doing pilots. You are going to pick episodes for us to watch that are sort of representative-ish episodes or episodes you particularly liked.
Yep. And so I think what we'll do for that is I'll drop in the Vulgarthon episode at the end when we're doing our wrap up, which episodes we're going to watch. We are going to start with Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I'll also put that in the episode notes. So if for some reason you don't want to listen to the Vulgarthon review, though, I think...
How could you not want to listen to us talk about Kevin Smith?
Yeah, we're not really spoiling anything from the movies either, really. I mean, there's nothing to spoil. But I'll also put it in the episode notes so you can know which ones to watch. I want to make sure that they're ones that like really feel like they're in conversation with I Saw the TV Glow. And I can't wait. And you can find Are You Afraid of the Dark? I've been watching it on Amazon Prime. But I think you can also watch it on YouTube and
it's on Prime Video. And it's on YouTube for like $2.
Oh, and I think you can watch it looks like I'm looking at Amazon Prime and it says first episode free, but no matter what episode that is. So I think if you haven't watched it yet, whatever episode we decide to watch, you should be able to watch that one for free on Amazon Prime. It's Are You Afraid of the Dark, if you don't know, is an anthology series of it's kids around a campfire, and each episode is one of them submitting a story that they're telling, a scary story, and then so the frame is the same characters, though that changes across seasons. But then inside of those, the stories inside of those have different actors and settings and time periods. It's so fun. I love Are You Afraid of the Dark? I'm like, admittedly less of a Goosebumps person, though I did love the books. But Are You Afraid of the Dark, Pete and Buffy are the three big ones, but there's definitely like the Goosebumps thing in here too. So we're going to do that.
Cool.
As well. Going to get a little spooky as we move into fall.
Yes. Little spooky, and then a little spookier.
Of course.
And then
we'll see where we go.
We know where we're going. We're just not saying it yet. Yeah. So, yeah. Next week, Vulgarthon. Week after, Are You Afraid of the Dark? All culminating at the end of September with I Saw the TV Glow. Lots of plans after that we will discuss later on.
I Saw the TV Glow. I can't wait to see what you think of it.
And
our listeners.
I listened to some podcasts about it when it came out and was curious about it. When you saw it, you talked to me about it, but it's been one of those, like, I will watch it at some point. And now I have a plan. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right. Where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at WatchersPodNJ. They can email us at WatchersPodNJ@gmail.com. They can find me on Instagram at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM.
And I'm at AQ Andrea Q. And my Instagram right now is full of pictures of my dear, sweet, perfect Toby cat who had a health emergency just a couple of weeks ago and is recovering splendidly. And I am just so obsessed with him right now. I'm always obsessed with him, but if you want to go see some pictures of a big fluffy cat with a little shaved leg, his little leg.
The shaved leg is too much.
I
know. My Instagram is also still cat heavier than usual with Charlie the Calico hanging out at my house still, being cute and puking places.
You know how cats be.
Like cats are, yeah. Yeah. Oh, real quick before we go. I know we just did all of our outro stuff. We had talked about how occasionally we recommend things on this show. I don't know if this show is going to be for anyone else. I don't even know if the show is for me. But Industry is back, which is an HBO show about a bunch of people working in finance.
Jodie, what?
I know. But I watch survivalist television too. I contain multitudes. It seems pretty good so far. I don't know. If anyone else is watching Industry and doesn't know why they're watching it, maybe send us an email and we can talk about Industry.
I would love to know.
Yeah. I know I'm supposed to be recommending things, and I don't know that I'm totally recommending Industry, but I'm just curious if anyone else is watching it. I was going to
say, you're recommending people watch it so you can see what other people think about it. Not necessarily.
Like, maybe they can tell me why I'm watching it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I
have not watched anything new, I don't think, or read. I'm reading I Don't Want to Go Home. It's the History of the Stone Pony.
Oh, great. Cool.
By Nick Corsiniti. It's great.
That does sound good, actually. I'm watching this show called Dawson's Creek.
It makes me so happy.
It's so funny that this is the one that stuck.
You're in it for the long run.
My Hulu page is wild.
So confused.
It's Dawson's Creek, Alone, Top Chef, which is now over, and like I don't even want to say it, but The Bachelorette is always. I got sucked into that.
No shade.
Years ago, I know.
Some of those people are lovely.
Yeah.
I think last season's Bachelor was a Philly guy, right?
Yeah. He was also one of the like most normal, decent ones they've ever had.
Like, say what you want about Philly, but I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, he seems like he's also a tennis pro, so I don't know how Philly he really is. But
really?
Yeah, we can talk about The Bachelor another time. But so where are we going to see them next week, Andrea? At the campfire?
We'll see you next week for the Watchers' first official meeting of the Midnight Society.
Can't wait.